Hi, I'm Dr. Rebecca Kinsey, a licensed psychologist in Indiana. Building Resilience was a presentation I did for Geisinger Commonwealth School of Medicine for their nursing program. So today I'll talk about what resilience is and how we can enhance it. I'll spend time talking about the broaden and build theory of positive emotions and how it relates to resilience. Then I'll spend some time talking about actually increasing positive emotions. I'll go into a mindfulness practice and discuss what mindfulness is. Lastly, I'll talk about outcomes specific to nursing students and nurses and give you all some resources at the end. The American Psychological Association defines resilience as the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences. Everyone will face challenging life experiences, which means everyone has an opportunity to build resilience. And that's the key here, is that you can build your sense of resilience through learning various coping strategies, which I'll talk about today. One theory that has been well researched within the field is Fredrickson's broaden and build theory of positive emotions. What this theory says is that when people experience positive emotions, it actually broadens people's ability to think and behave more creatively. Positive emotions are emotions like love, interest, joy, and contentment. When people experience these emotions, it can undo the effect of negative emotions. For example, if someone is sad and then seeks out something they are interested in, this may help to undo the negative effects of negative emotions. So think things like lethargy or low motivation. When people experience positive emotions, it can motivate them into action or to think creatively or more flexibly. In turn, this builds up their social, physical, intellectual, or psychological resources. For example, when people feel love, that may motivate them to spend time with their loved ones. This builds up their social resources. If people were to feel interest or engagement, that may motivate them to seek out more knowledge, in turn, building up their intellectual resources. Okay, so why am I telling you all of this? What this theory purports is that if we can increase how often people experience positive emotions, then we can help build up resources to build more resilience. Consequently, when people are faced with stressors, they have this buildup of resources, so to speak, to help cope with stressors. If you've heard the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, then increasing positive emotions is a way to fill your cup. There are many ways to increase positive emotions, and I'll just name a few. One is through gratitude, and probably an exercise you all have heard of before. It's been very, very popularized, but it's the 3 good things exercise. And this exercise entails you writing down 3 good things that happened to you, providing as much detail as possible about those things, and then reflecting upon why you think it happened. And this why part is something that's not always discussed when we hear people talking about gratitude journals. But researchers have found that it's actually really important to reflect upon why you think that thing that you were grateful for happened. And that's going to help the grateful feelings last longer and tends to give people this sense of greater self-efficacy. So for example, if you wrote down, I feel grateful that I got to talk to my good friend about a book I read recently and we could discuss our thoughts and feelings about it. This happened because this friendship is something I've been fostering for the last several years. And as we've gotten closer, we realize more things we have in common and feel comfortable talking to each other about those interests. Gratitude is one of those emotions that tend to be pretty easy to increase, but the effects, unfortunately, aren't really long lasting. Meaning, if you do a gratitude exercise, it's unlikely this is going to have a lasting effect for days. However, you can do this sort of practice regularly to gain the benefit of increasing that emotion. And then in turn, that can help you start to have a more grateful mindset and that you may be more attuned to situations that elicit feelings of gratitude. Performing acts of kindness can also temporarily increase positive emotions. Neuroscience research actually shows that when people perform acts of kindness, it activates parts of our brain linked with pleasure and reward. So this is a small, easy thing that you can do. It doesn't have to be you go and volunteer your time for 8 hours on a Saturday. It could literally be as simple as like you buying coffee for the person behind you. If you scan the QR code, it takes you to the Random Acts of Kindness Foundation, where they have a lot of resources and multiple examples of acts of kindness. Self-compassion entails being mindful, acknowledging common humanity, and being kind to oneself. Self-compassion has been found to be an incredibly helpful skill in managing emotions. I'll link Kristen Neff's website at the end of this presentation in case you're interested in exploring more resources or practicing more exercises. It's a great website. So when someone is being self-compassionate, they are being mindful of their suffering in the moment. I'll talk more about mindfulness in the next slide, but to briefly mention it within the context of self-compassion, it would look like someone saying, this is a moment of suffering during some sort of time of emotional distress. Common humanity speaks to the fact that suffering is a part of this human experience. Calling upon common humanity may sound like someone saying, other people have felt this way. Lastly, when practicing self-compassion, you would want to be kind to yourself, and this may look like placing a comforting hand on your heart and using a really soft tone to say, may I be kind to myself, or may I treat myself like I would a good friend. One of the best things you can do for improving your mental and your physical health is to exercise. So from a psychological perspective, exercise is linked with lots of good outcomes. So it's linked with increases in feelings of happiness and self-esteem. It helps to decrease perceived stress and depressive symptoms. But the really important thing to realize with exercise is that it can be whatever you want that gets your body moving. It does not have to be this formal activity in which you go to the gym and work out for an hour. It can be taking a walk outside, lifting weights, doing exercise on formal gym equipment like an elliptical or rowing machine, dancing around your home, yoga, whatever. It's just whatever is helpful to get your body moving in a way that you can enjoy. We'll now go into mindfulness. And like I said at the beginning, I want to start by having you all just do a brief mindfulness exercise. The premise of mindfulness is to be present and curious. If mindfulness is new to you, try to approach this exercise with an open mind. Do your best to stay engaged in it, although it can be totally normal to have your mind wander away from the exercise. That's okay. So I'll guide you through just a couple of minutes. There'll be pauses throughout. That's okay. Stay with it. I'll try to guide you to help you stay in the present. So for now, just notice how your body feels in this moment. Try to put your feet flat on the ground. If you're sitting in a chair, notice where your body is meeting the chair. So noticing where your legs meet the chair, where your hips meet the chair, into your back. Or if you're laying down, notice how your body feels against the ground. So notice where your back meets the ground, throughout your legs, into your heels. And notice how your body feels sitting in the chair, laying down on the ground, and where those parts of your body actually meet the ground or meet the chair. And then contrast that with how your body feels when it's more open, right? So if nothing's touching it. And just notice those sensations throughout your body. So you can scan from your legs into your torso, throughout your arms, into your neck and your head. And just be curious about the sensations that you're noticing. So do you feel hot? Do you feel cold? Do you feel tense? Do you feel relaxed? Does it feel like there's a buzzing or a tingling? Again, just being curious about those sensations that you pick up on. We're not saying, oh, my back hurts. I hate this. I'm getting old. This sucks. We're not saying, oh, it's so cold. I wish it was warmer outside. We're just simply noticing those sensations without any sort of judgment on them. And as you sit with your body more, just allow yourself to be supported by the ground or be supported by your chair, really imagining like gravity is pulling you down. And when we focus on our bodies, it really helps us stay present. So we are practicing mindfulness with this. And just notice air naturally going in through your nose and out through your nose. Or if it feels more natural for you to breathe through your mouth, you can try to do that. Just observing what those feelings are as the air goes in and as it goes out. And then start to draw your attention outside of your body, so into your environment, noticing what things you can see. And remember, we're being non-judgmental with this. So you're not saying, oh, my room is such a mess, I didn't have any time. You're just simply saying, oh, I noticed that. I noticed some papers, or I noticed a cup. Notice what you might hear. So do you notice a fan? Do you notice traffic outside? Is there anything that you smell? Anything that you can taste? Again, just being curious, being non-judgmental. So you're not saying, oh, that smelled bad. I don't like that. Just simply saying, I noticed that. I smell that. So as we come to a close, just thank your mind, thank your body for being present in this moment. This can be hard to do, but you did it. You tried your best. So to get into mindfulness, I want to say first that there's lots of research that's shown that mindfulness is incredibly helpful for increasing resilience, to the point where there are entire programs dedicated to teaching mindfulness to help people be more resilient. So what actually is mindfulness? As you probably heard as I was guiding you through all this, is that mindfulness is this practice of being non-judgmental and accepting of your experiences and being present in the moment. So if we can understand how our body is feeling in this moment, we are being mindful, we are being present. We are very future-oriented in our society, so mindfulness can be difficult to do, especially when you're first learning. And you can be mindful of your new mindful practice, meaning when you struggle to keep your mind in the present, you respond with non-judgment and acceptance. So that might sound like, I notice I'm struggling to stay present, and I'm trying my best. When we think about ways to cultivate mindfulness, I like to recommend starting with a mindful minute. And this is exactly what it sounds like, in which you choose to be mindful for 1 minute. This may look like taking a minute prior to going into a meeting where you check in with your body, feel your feet on the ground, notice what you can see, touch, smell, taste, or hear in that moment, allowing your thoughts to float away. So very similar to the exercise that I walked you all through, but you would just do it for a minute. We can also practice mindfulness by choosing to be mindful at least once a week, and perhaps with a task that you typically do mindlessly. So for example, you can practice being mindful brushing your teeth. So what do you taste as you brush your teeth? What do you smell? Or mindfully walking across campus. Notice what sights you see, what sounds, the smells of campus. The point here is that mindfulness does not have to be a formal practice, especially when you are first starting off. So you don't have to sit down for 5 to 10 minutes and do a long mindfulness meditation. If you're interested in doing longer meditations, I'll link a popular website with several meditations that are a bit longer, but you don't have to start off with that. You can very much start off with these mindful minute exercises. We see in mindfulness research that there is a dose effect, meaning that the more you do it, the more benefits that you will get from it, but it may taper off eventually. So you might not get as much benefit increasing mindfulness practice to 1 hour from 30 minutes. You would just have to test and see how you respond. Contrary to popular belief, mindfulness is not about emptying your mind of your thoughts. That is nearly impossible to do. Rather, mindfulness is about noticing and observing those thoughts without judgment. One of my favorite metaphors for mindfulness is standing behind a waterfall, in which you imagine yourself standing behind the water flowing in front of you. You are not under the water or getting swept away by the water. You're just simply observing the water flowing down in front of you. We can have the same attitudes towards our thoughts. You're simply noticing your thoughts rather than getting swept away with them. In addition, mindfulness is a lifelong process. It's unrealistic to think you're going to be mindful all the time. There are going to be times in which you are not present, or you get caught up in negative judgments of yourself, your world, or other people. Be gentle with yourself when this happens, and do your best to implement mindfulness more often in your life. So to summarize, introducing mindfulness into your routine can be a way to build your resilience. So when you are inevitably faced with difficult situations in the future, you are able to adapt to those difficult situations easier. I wanted to briefly mention some of the outcomes of mindfulness practice with nursing students and nurses. In a literature review of mindfulness with nurses and nursing students, studies indicated mindfulness training helped to reduce stress, great to hear, decrease anxiety and depressive symptoms. It also decreased burnout. And generally, when we look at burnout in research, we're looking at emotional exhaustion, cynicism, and professional ineffectiveness. So it's someone who just feels really tired emotionally. Perhaps they start to just think really negatively, and then they start to feel like they're not really capable of doing their job well. Mindfulness training also helped to increase happiness and empathy, and all of this was so good that it was actually recommended to build mindfulness training into nursing programs with the intention of helping to build resilience and ultimately provide more person-centered empathic care. Also, fun fact, a study done by Wheeler and colleagues in 2017 found that mindfulness tends to decrease activation in the amygdala, which is related to your stress response, and increase activation in parts of your brain responsible for judgment and decision making. So what this might mean is that when you are mindful, you can stay more emotionally regulated and use better critical thinking skills compared to if you were mindless or even less mindful. With everything we talked about today, it is very much a preventative approach to building resilience. The idea with increasing your positive emotions and being mindful is that it will, one, build up your resources so that when you are faced with the inevitable stressors of your life, you can use those resources to overcome the stressor. I'm sure you all have had the experience where you're already feeling stressed, you're feeling depleted or exhausted, then something else stressful happens and you're like, oh, come on, I cannot deal with this right now. We don't want this to happen. We want to be able to take time to fill our cups and have enough energy to deal with the stressor that comes our way. Secondly, with a mindful approach, it helps us to stay present, non-judgmental, and accepting of our stressful experiences. We move away from, dang it, this sucks, I just want this to end, to, well, this is happening and I'm going to do my best to deal with it. And that is going to help us adapt to challenges better compared to if we resist those challenges. So based on what we talked about regarding increasing positive emotions and practicing mindfulness, what can you take away from the presentation today and begin to implement in your life? So take some time to reflect upon this, perhaps write some stuff down, but the goal of reflecting upon this is to be intentional. So if you say, okay, I want to try to practice gratitude more often, then you can have that intention as you go into your week. I always like to leave people with additional resources, especially after a brief presentation. The gratitude link provides numerous exercises for gratitude. including the 3 good things that we discussed. The self-compassion website is developed by the lead researcher in self-compassion, Kristen Neff, and there are a lot of good resources on that website, including written exercises, guided meditations, and also research. The mindfulness website is mindful.org that I reference, where you can learn more about mindfulness, and there are numerous guided practices on their website. And then lastly, I have my wellness journal, Navigating Wellness, which is a guided journal that leads you through lots of practices to help with self-discovery and growth. I hope that this was helpful for you all, and you have a wonderful rest of your day.